All right, guys, I'm super excited for this one. This is Main Street Mogul. I'm here with my very, very special guest, Mr. Paul Bello, pest control legend, icon in the industry. And I don't think I jest. I don't think that's too much. I think that's a very genuine statement about Mr. Bello. So we're just going to get into things today. This one's going to be pest control heavy. This is a special gift just for my pest control guys and gals out there on this one. Paul, for the few that don't know you, you want to just introduce yourself real quick, kind of just tell us a little bit about your background and all the amazing things you're doing real quick?
Okay, so like he said, my name is Paul Bello, and I've only been doing this work since 1976. And even when I'm doing presentations at workshops, they want to introduce me. I said, I don't want to waste anyone's time. You know, I'm just going to say who I am, and then we're going to teach the subject matter. So I think people will learn as we go about who I am, because that's not important.
Okay.
I think what's important is the questions you want to ask and the answers to the questions.
Okay, great. Well, I tell you what, with no further ado, we'll get right into it.
Awesome.
As you know, guys, Main Street Mogul, what we do here is we try to inspire people in entrepreneurship. We like to tell interesting stories of entrepreneurship, and of course, get some practical tips along the way. That's what we're trying to do. And Mr. Bello is an entrepreneur from way back. He actually started and sold a pest control company. And what year, Paul, was that?
Okay, so I started working in the industry as a technician in 1976.
Okay.
And then when I graduated college, I became technical director of Rent-A-Kill. Left that job after about 14 months and started my own company. So that's about 1980-ish time frame.
So let's start at the beginning. 1980, after you were at Tech and thing, you started Belco Pest Control. So tell me what inspired you to launch Belco Pest Control, and what were those early days like? Like, what was that like back then? 1980, right?
Oh my God, it's 1980. I graduated Georgia in 1979, and I had been working as a technician since 1976, all through college. And I took student loans and paid for my own education. So earning dollars as a pest control technician was really, really important to me, because minimum wage was like $1.85.
Yeah.
And Dr. Frischman did this topics in bio class that all the bio majors had to attend, and he did this thing where he was selling cookies out of a brown paper bag, and that class was every Monday morning, and I think it was like from 10 to 11 a.m. And so the first cookie sold. And he came in with this little brown paper bag and said, I'm going to sell you cookies, but there's a limited amount. And how much am I bid for the first cookie?
Okay.
Who will pay me 5 cents? So a nickel. So the first cookie sold for a nickel. And the last cookie sold for like $1.25. Right. Which, when you think about minimum wage, $1.85, $1.25 for one cookie, I think an Oreo cookie is a lot of money.
Yeah,
right.
I guess so.
So he went. So the bag's empty, and he's like a magician showing us that the bag's empty. And he says, "I just taught you the law of supply and demand." And he says, "I teach pest control technology, and if you come into my program, you can get a job right now as a service technician in pest control. They need educated people and people who know what they're doing, and you can get a job right now for $10 an hour or more." I heard the $10 an hour.
He was excited. 1980,
like,
right?
Wait, I'm gonna go talk to this guy. So I went. The class was over. I went down and talked to him. I was the only one, and I talked to him, and I switched into his major. And within a month, I'm working as a technician.
Got it.
And I've been doing it ever since.
Got it.
And I tell people, bugs put me through college, put my kids through college, and helped me raise my family. And I'm still working.
Still working. Still out there getting it. One of the things I think we have to have as entrepreneurs is perseverance. I've talked on this channel a lot. I'm a big advocate of that. You shared a story with me, I think, earlier. Do you remember the story you shared with me?
Yes.
You really had to persevere. There was some adversity. You mind just real quick kind of just sharing that story? I think it highlights what we have to be and what we have to do as entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
We get faced with so many adversities and we want to quit, and sometimes we just got to push through. And I think that story just highlights it greatly. If you share it real quick.
My God, it's just one of the things that I had to go through. And think about this. If you're an entrepreneur and it's a roller coaster of emotions.
That's
right? We have these high moments where something great has happened, and then tomorrow equipment fails or something horrible happens. So here we are. My business, Belco's going really, really well. I think there's about 15 or 18 people working.
Oh, wow.
And
And again, I have to keep referencing, guys, this was 1980.
This is in the 80s.
Yes.
This is in the 80s.
Nothing
So,
but-
yeah, so this isn't the first year. This is near the end of my tenure with that company. And so some of the things I did as an entrepreneur were, I want to say that I'm very fortunate because I made right decisions based on experience.
Sure.
And I look back and I'll tell you, and you've heard me tell you before, I was just lucky. But preparation builds luck, right? So anyways,
Yeah,
so
the harder you work, the luckier you get.
that's right. So one of the things that I decided to do, and a lot of the stuff that I did in my business was due to solving a problem that we experienced. So one of the things that we did was, if we're coming to spray your trees, because we had gypsy moths there.
Got it.
And the way gypsy moths work is, if you don't spray your trees, by the end of July, beginning of August, it looks like winter. They literally
They'll
eat all the
decimate
leaves. They just knock down all the leaves. Okay, so anyways, we would call, and we have somebody in the office calling the customers tomorrow that we're coming to spray your trees.
Right. You said you had like 50 appointments set for the next day.
Oh,
You had a lot of people expecting.
We had over 60. So each truck was going to do over 30. Okay?
Wow.
So we're calling and we're telling them, we're like cable TV guys. We're coming AM or PM at your house. So I would route that out and tell the gal, okay, here's the list, AM or PM, and those people would know. Now, the other thing that happened about the calling is we would give them these little notes that said, hey, Belco's coming to spray our trees, so don't park your car under our trees, don't have your laundry out, don't have a party, don't have your horse or your pets out, and blah, 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 and stuff like that. And they would put them in their neighbor's mailbox.
So
They're clover leafing for us.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Okay, that wasn't my intention. The real intention was, at the beginning of the season, we mailed them an envelope that had all those little cards to give their neighbors and envelopes in which they would, if they didn't pay for the season in advance or the sprays in advance, they had to put their check in there and put that under the front mat.
It's a good way to keep the AR down.
I like getting paid, right? That's
And why most people are in business in the first place,
Yes,
right?
Yeah. So anyway, so we did that, and meanwhile we got other customers from it. So we would run dark to dark during the season.
Wow.
We did a lot of work, and that's, if you're working with me, you probably won't like it because I'm skipping lunch, or lunch is just going to be a snack. Because what happens is, if you eat too much for lunch, you can't work the rest of the afternoon. All right. So anyway, so we're going out and we're doing all that work and stuff. So everything's scheduled. And we have two big trucks running. I'm sitting in the cab of an F700 with a 60-gallon-a-minute rig and a 1,200-gallon tank. It's a big tank. The other truck's an F700, and it has a 600-gallon tank. It has a 35-gallon-a-minute main rig. And I'm sitting, when you're in this cab over F700, it's up pretty high.
Sure.
So Bill, who's one of my right-hand men, he's coming to me. I'm sitting up there looking at the map and blah, blah, blah. And he comes over, the door's open, I'm looking down at him like this. And he says, Paul, you gotta come see something. And I said, not now, Bill.
Because you're busy.
I'm busy.
Yeah.
I'm busy. I'm
Work mode.
Yeah. And he says, no, you really gotta look. I said, Bill, not now. He says, no, you really have to look, Paul. So I climb down and I'm walking around my truck, following Bill to the other truck. And I remember thinking, wow, look at that truck. It just really looks good. Because my trucks were white. And, a white truck, even if you don't wash it, still looks pretty clean.
Yeah, it's clean. It's
and
crisp.
I have hand-lettered pinstriping, blue and red pinstriping, and it says Belco on it and our
Patriotic.
phone number, right? Yeah, 360-1618 was
Still remember the number.
I
Wow.
remember the number. And the trucks just look good. And I thought, everything looked good. What's the matter? And he goes like this, and I'm following him. We walk around the back of the truck, and I look. My heart just sank. Because on that truck is a new 4-cylinder Wisconsin engine. I think it's either 37 or 43 horsepower, I forget. And someone from between the evening before when we dropped the truck off and this morning came there that night and stole the engine. But not only did they steal the engine, they cut it off with a torch.
Wow.
So all the steel and everything was destroyed.
Right.
And I'm sitting there panicking. I'm literally starting
And so
crying.
at this point, you're a young entrepreneur. This is a big hit.
Oh, I'm like, what, I'm what, 29 years old?
Yeah.
Right?
And this is an expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Yes.
That engine alone was $5,500, right? And I'm like, I didn't even know what to do. And your brain's going 1,000 miles an hour, 1,000,000 miles an hour. And
Did you think about just throwing in the towel and quitting?
Part of me was like, you know what? Frick this, I'm quitting, I'm going home. I don't do this. I can go get a job as an entomologist, a technical director at a pest control company again.
Right, get a guaranteed paycheck.
I get a real, and no headaches. You know, if you got 18 employees, you got 18 headaches sometimes, right? And all these customers and all that stuff. But I'm thinking, okay, I have all these customers. We had over 60 customers.
You're giving your word.
That we just called yesterday, said we're coming. I have all these guys looking at me that are counting on me for a paycheck, right?
That's right.
And I have business to conduct. So what do you do when you're an entrepreneur?
What did you do?
You pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And I said, we're gonna have a huddle. Okay, guys, look, this is, and I'm talking to him just like I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm counting on you guys. I said, we'll work longer, we'll work harder, and we'll work with 1.5 trucks. Because I had a 10-gallon a minute, 200-gallon rig that was for termites and lawn sprays and stuff, and that was on a steel skid frame that we could pick up and slide into the F-250.
Wow.
Right? And here's another thing that I did lucky. Because I had to be out there working too, I wanted the other truck where I could see it. So when we scheduled the work, we're all in the same neighborhood. This truck's doing the odd number houses, this one's doing the evens. We're right there working together.
Right.
Because if I didn't do that, we would be 2 different neighborhoods. There's no way that other truck could do this work. We would have never got it done. So that saved me. So we called the police. The police found the engine and the guy who did it, and they impounded that engine and kept it in evidence the whole year.
Wow.
I worked the whole year with a truck and a half.
Wow.
But we overcame it.
Wow.
Anybody could have easily quit.
So I love that story. I mean, a lot of times as entrepreneurs, that's what we have to do.
That was catastrophic to us.
Yeah.
Right? Catastrophic to me.
Let me ask you a question. Prior to that, you was able to do the work with those 2 trucks. I know you had to work extra hard. You had to juggle some things, but you got it done. You figured it out. Before that happened, and somebody would have told you, if they came to you and said, hey, I need you to do this amount of work with just this rig and just these 2 trucks, would you have even thought that you could even do it?
I would have said there's no way.
You're just crazy.
There's no way.
So it's amazing how you ever heard necessity is the mother of invention?
Exactly.
When you had to do it and your reputation was on the line, your customers were counting on you, and your employees were counting on you, you did what you had to do. You worked from dark to dark, dusk to dusk.
That's right.
And man, that's what it takes sometimes. That's the stories. That's the stuff people don't see. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
No, it's totally okay. And you know, anybody who knows me has heard, maybe heard me tell this story. You know, I am focused on the work, and I want you guys to be focused on the work because look, as long as there's bugs, we'll always have a job if you're in this business. And the work is out there.
That's right.
You know, I mean, I'm 70 years old now, and I'm still working. I drove from Atlanta to here, and I'll be in Houston, Texas tomorrow working.
Yeah. No excuse not to grind.
Yeah, and if
Paul Bello's 70, he's on his grind. No excuse. No excuse for you guys out there. So holding accountability.
Here's how I look at it. So if me and you are we have to dig a trench 3 feet wide, 3 feet deep, and 100 feet long in Atlanta in August with a soup spoon, I don't need you working next to me telling me how hot it is. Just work. We still have to get the work done.
That's right.
And that's my attitude. And you know what? It has saved me. I could have easily quit then. And I wouldn't be sitting here today, and I wouldn't be the person I am today. Right?
You know what? This is a great segue into my next question for you because you had a lot of success with Belco. You went through all the adversities. You pushed through. At what point did you realize Belco had grown into something valuable enough to sell? And what was that process like for you emotionally and strategically, Paul?
Okay, so that's an interesting question to me from my perspective because your perspective is different than mine. Okay, and here's why. When that happened to me, I realized, I looked back at my experience at Renico, and I looked at my experience working at my dad's gas station and stuff and working on cars and Murray the accountant. And I made the decision that, look what I have. It's like I have all these employees.
Mhm.
I'm working to make payroll, and everybody knows that story. I have all these
Are you
headaches.
working just to make payroll sometimes?
No, yeah, well,
Yeah.
sometimes that's what it
That's
seems
the
like.
truth. That's what it seems
But I
like.
was lucky in how my thinking and thought process was about how to be profitable. So I did make money, but I thought to myself, wow, I don't need all this extra aggravation and headaches, right? I need something more professional. So that day is the day I decided I'm going to go to school and get my MBA in accounting and get accounting experience and then come back into the industry and be more valuable if I don't like accounting. And I can tell you, I did work in public accounting and I received the highest offer of anybody that got hired out of the graduate class that I graduated with in accounting. And I worked in accounting for 2+ years. I hated it. Accounting sucks, right? I'm sorry.
It bores me, Paul.
I'm sorry.
I know you got to know your numbers, but
You have to know your numbers. But
You know.
you know what's good about accounting is that I can look in a knowledgeable fashion, and like when we talk at the workshops and stuff, and teach people about profitability and how to watch these numbers and all that kind of stuff. But that's the fun part of accounting, watching how we make money better because we know the numbers as business owners.
That's right.
But doing accounting and having your head down and doing numbers and on a computer or by hand or whatever, that part sucks, right? In fact, it sucks.com, you can quote me. So anyways, that helped me to make that decision.
Okay.
So when I decided, hey, I'm gonna sell this thing out, I was doing it purposefully for the choice to advance my career.
Got it.
So I didn't care how much I got. Right?
But you did, from what I know, you did pretty good.
I did okay. I mean, I sold for enough money to pay for my accounting degree and enough to put down payment on a house for Mary Ann and I and put some money in the bank. So I did okay.
Nothing wrong
And
with that.
helped me repay some of my student loans.
I love it, Paul.
Yeah. So I
Pretty
did
great.
okay.
Do you ever, well, you're still an entrepreneur, you're still in a lot of
Yeah.
business. Do you ever miss that part of the business, actually running that large operation?
My operation I do now is pretty large.
It's pretty, yeah, it is pretty large.
No,
Well,
so-
you know what, let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
You have a large operation now, but you have less employees to manage. Do you ever miss managing that large team of people?
I don't, and I'll tell you why. Because I do it vicariously through people like you guys,
Got it,
right?
got
I mean,
it.
I'm involved. People call me every day for help.
That's
And,
right.
and you know what? We talked earlier, just moments ago before we put the camera on. I said, the more I give away, the more comes back to me.
That's one of my favorite sayings.
Yeah.
I love it,
And so people call me and they're like, I have people who.
It's like you start to attract opportunities.
Well, I've said this to people before. You get business from being in business. When you're established, people know Lejean. Oh, wait, I think I saw a mouse. Wait, what's that? Oh, yeah, Lejeani's. Because you've been here so long, right?
Yes, sir.
I had one ad in my business for Belco. One ad in the Penny Saver, and I didn't need any more ads. I just grew because A, we did good work. B, our trucks were good looking.
Yes.
Right?
You're a professional.
I hired decent people. They're
That's a
all
big one.
college, either college-bound juniors or seniors from high school, and kids and freshmen in college. And they went to a local college. I had them for 2 to 4 years.
That's right.
So it was really good, right? So you just get business from being in business because, like the flyers, the people clover-leafing for me. And oh, you're doing a good job for my neighbors. If I wanted to get more customers, I would work on the weekends.
When nobody else was.
Nobody else is working, and
Or you worked later till 6, 7 o'clock at night when everybody else was
I worked
home.
every day till dark.
That's right.
And Mary will tell you.
I believe it.
Mary
Man,
will tell
that's
you.
so good, man.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this so much, Paul. You kind of already covered this, but I guess looking back, some of the key decisions that made Belco successful, because we're in a competitive industry. What separated you in Belco from everybody else that you were competing against at that time? I think you kind of just covered that, but is there one thing, I know you're a professional, you hired the right people, but is there any one other thing you can say that kind of stands out to you that made you successful over your competitors?
Yes, and I think we talked about it maybe last night or this morning on the phone. But one of the things that I knew is I had value as someone who was educated in this field. So on the side of my
you had
truck,
much more education than anybody else that was
than
doing it.
anyone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
than
because
anyone.
on the side of my truck it said Paul J. Bello, BSA entomology. That's Bachelor of
Right.
Science in Agriculture
Right.
in entomology.
Not very many entomologists out here doing it.
Okay, so the guy at the end
Matter
of
of
the
fact, I think you're the only one I've ever met that actually operated.
So the guy at the end of the hose for the other companies is some maybe high school or college kid making $6 or $8
Yeah.
or $10 an hour.
Yeah.
At my company, so this is what I would tell customers. You're gonna let people come in your backyard and spray pesticides, and they're just high school kids or whatever. And with my company, you have an entomologist doing it, and I'm supervising it, and that's why I did the trucks on the same street, so I could be there all the time, right? So that has to be worth more money. One of the things I tell you guys when you call, I said, look, think about the companies that are doing it wrong and they're getting paid this much. How much should you get paid for doing it right?
That's
so
right.
I knew right away that I was worth more than the average bear, if you will. I also knew that by controlling my costs and knowing what my costs were, if I wasn't getting over $1 a gallon applied, I wasn't making good money. So my pricing was double to triple what everybody else was charging. Wow. And how was I able to do that? It's easy.
That was my next question.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. You know, it's go look in the parking lot at your grocery store or your local mall or the movie theater, and it proves this point. You've got Ford Fiestas parked next to BMWs and Mercedes. I'm selling Mercedes.
I'm partial to the Mercedes myself.
Right? See what I'm saying though, right? Yeah. And like, okay, well, nobody's going to pay that. They did. They still do.
Wow.
If I tell you guys won't believe that my hourly rate that I charge, and I still get it. So you can get it too if you do excellent work.
Man, that's good, Paul. Thank you for sharing. You really did have a competitive advantage being more educated. And I think that's what we have to do in business every day is continue to, I think I heard somebody say, it may be Alex Ramosi, I listen to a lot of his content, is the best investment you ever make is in the S&Me 500. Yeah. So educating yourself, working on your own skills, and working on you makes you more valuable in the marketplace than the next guy. And I believe that's the biggest investment we can ever make in businesses in ourselves to be better. And you had spent the money, you got the education, you really did differentiate yourself in the marketplace by working on your skills and your education.
Yeah, while that's true, the flip side of that, or what goes along with that, is nobody's going to know that value unless you tell them. Right?
Yeah,
remember we talked about
having the best company in the world, and if nobody knows it, and you don't let them know that you're great. Don't keep it a secret.
Do not keep it a secret. Yeah. You know, and you know, I'm going to tell you guys this, and you might think I'm bragging, but it's true. This is facts. The place I'm going to tomorrow, I spoke to that lady on Sunday, and just to make sure that she knew I was coming on Thursday, because I'm coming a long distance, and she says, I looked you up online. I'm just so glad you're coming because I saw your background. I saw stuff on Facebook about you. I saw stuff online. I saw your website and all this kind of stuff. You know, you build that credibility over
a lifetime.
But you know, excellence is a journey, right?
Over a lifetime.
You don't just get there and say, "Oh, here I am in excellence. I can rest on my laurels." You can't. You got to keep doing. You got to keep churning.
Well, I think you're the epitome of that. I mean, like you said, you just drove from Atlanta to Covington. Now you're here with me, and you're going to Houston. And you don't have to. I know that about you. But like you said, you're not resting on your laurels. You start here again. And you're still having fun.
I'm having fun. I'm doing the Lord's work for some of these people. You know? So
I love it. So Paul, as an associate certified entomologist and ACE, you're also a BCE. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the pest control science over the last 20 years?
Okay, so one of the really big ones, I mean the Stevie Wonder visually obvious one, is back when I was a technician, and I still regard myself as a technician, by the way. But back in the day,
you're not a technician.
Yeah, we were applying pounds per thousand of active ingredient.
Okay.
Pounds. Today, think about this: like Demand CS, you're applying it at 0.06%, right?
That's right. Very low application.
Yeah,
rate.
we were back, you know, and you're applying very little. So the efficacy of the chemicals is the products we have today are very effective at way lower rates, and they're more environmentally friendly.
It's a lot safer than the products we used to use back in the day too, I would think.
Well, they are because we're applying way less, but they're effective at very low rates because these chemicals, like if I want to talk like a toxicologist kind of guy or an industry, you know, a manufacturer rep type guy, which I was, and you guys know that, right? Is we say, oh man, that chemistry's hot. That's hotter. It's way hotter. So like, you know, everybody knows, hey, I'm a terminal promoter. You know, that's a great termiticide. It works way better than chlordane did. And people like, the older guys, oh, you can't say that. I just said it because it's true.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the chlordane, they say, used to last. I had I think you actually did a test in one of your classes, not with chlordane, of course, but with Thermador. But the half-life of chlordane was like 50 years or something like that.
No. Okay, half-life is counted in days. So the half-life of chlordane is, I think, 367 days. Now, what does that mean?
Well, how long did it last in the soil for protection of a home when you
I'm
said-
gonna tell-
And then for those who don't know, I'm sure you know, chloridane's not allowed anymore. It was a very hot product.
Well,
But you could spray your house one time with that old stuff, and I mean, you were good for.
Okay, so the longest duration of credible data out there for chlordane or one of the chlordane hydrocarbons, I think, is 27 years.
Okay.
All right, but half-life is a different thing. So I want to explain what half-life means. Half-life means you apply X amount today, and how long is it until it biodegrades until you have half.
Got it.
So with chlordane, we were applying 1%, which is 10,000 parts per million. With fipronil, Termador, we're applying 0.06%, which is only 600 parts per million.
Mm-hmm.
So the half-life of chlordane, remember we got 10,000 parts per million on day one.
Mm-hmm.
In approximately 367 days, now you only have 5,000 parts per million. And in the next 367
Got
days,
it.
now you have 2,500, and so on and so on and so on, until
Got
you
it.
get, until the degradation curve works itself down to zero
Right.
over a period of time. Fipronil, the half-life of fipronil is about 125 days.
Right. So what? And I think I'll try to answer my own question here. But you said fipronil is better than chlordane was. We have better products today. Fipronil, if you 10 years tops, right? Once you put it in the soil.
If I'm in business today, and I can tell you that, I mean, look, there's this curtain thing, you know, and most people have seen The Wizard of Oz. Remember when they go back to see the wizard, and Toto pulls the curtain back, and the guys,
Yeah.
you know, the wizard's like, just pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
That's
Well, I'm
right.
taking you behind the curtain now, because, you know, with the hobnobbing with the other fellow wizards. You know, if you talk to these guys, and I have, they say, well, if I was in the termite business today, I wouldn't guarantee anything over 5 years. Well, think about 5 years. Where does that 5 years come from? Well, 5 years comes from EPA saying you have to have a product that lasts for 5 years.
Got it.
So they're only tested for 5 years. But will we get 7 to 10 years out of a good application? You can, depending on a couple things. What kind of soil you have and what the termite pressure is. So if I'm down here where you are, where formosins are, you know,
Yeah, they're bad down here.
everywhere.
Whoever doesn't know, yeah,
They're
it's
everywhere,
serious.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
so out of 100 houses that you treat for termites, how many will have formosins?
Oh,
All
half,
of them?
maybe
More
half
than
or
half.
70. Yeah, 70%.
Yeah,
I'd say
so
at least.
I'm not going to do 7 to 10 years. I'm going to do 5 years here, and in 5 years and a day, I'm going to go out and at least
Got it.
do
Got
another
it.
booster treatment.
So-
People call them booster treatments, but you know,
Right, I'm
like
with you.
that.
So what makes the fipronil product better than old chlordane is it's safer.
Okay.
We don't get as long a longevity out of it that we did from the old product, but we actually get. Do we get colony elimination? With
You get the
fipronil, whereas-
domino effect that chlordane didn't do.
Right. So we actually do
Okay.
get better control and possible colony elimination with the fipronil, which is something chlordane never could have done.
Right, and people.
And safety, which is the big one. We're going to be safe.
Well, it has to be environmentally responsible. Now think about this, and the folks out there that don't know, I worked as a chemical technical person at at 2 of the chemical companies, and even Aventis, which was the ones I helped launch Terminal. So, and I did, you know, lab research and
He
stuff.
helped
and
launch
college
Termador,
and all that kind of
those
stuff.
of you that don't know. That's huge.
So anyways, and prior to going to Aventis, I was at Zeneca. So my joke that I used to tell my colleagues at the chemical company is, hey, here's our new label language. We want to make a product that says kills all, apply everywhere.
Kills all applies everywhere. Yeah.
So but that's easy to do. It's easy to make a product that kills everything, right? EPA is not going to let you apply it everywhere. Oh, and then EPA says it can only last up to 5 years. So making a product that only lasts a short period of time and it's dissipated and is effective at the same time
It's difficult.
is difficult. Making a product that stinks, lasts forever, and kills everything, that's easy.
And that's what y'all was spraying back in the day.
Back in the day, that's what I was using. I mean, like I was applying methoxychlor.
Got it.
Sevimol,
Got it.
diazinon, malathion, all
Yeah,
that
stuff all smelled like rotten
Oh
eggs.
my
It was
God,
scary,
yeah.
so.
I was a chemical cowboy back then.
Oh, goodness. So, Paul, I have one of your books here. Your books have become technical references in the industry. What gaps were you aiming to fill when you wrote those books? And just real quick, for those who don't know, you wrote 2 books. I have one here I highly recommend. It's the Cockroach Combat Manual 2. If you ever need any technical references or any technical stuff with cockroaches, guys, this is the go-to book for it right here. Mr. Bello is the author of this. But just real quick, what was your main goal when you wrote this book, and what was your other book that you wrote?
Okay, so the first book I wrote was the Bedbug Combat Manual.
Okay.
And I called Dr. Frischman, and you know, I was a Frischman student. I called him, and he wrote the original Cockroach Combat Manual. And I like that title. I'm working on the Termite Combat Manual right now.
Okay.
It's way overdue to get finished, but I have work to do too. So I wrote, he said, sure, you can use that title. I said, okay, so I wrote the Bedbug Combat Manual. And the reason I wrote the Bedbug Combat Manual is because at the time I started writing it, there was, I worked with so many people for bedbugs, and a lot of people didn't know what they were doing. I mean, there's a whole generation
well,
of
bedbugs, we didn't have to deal, like when I came into the industry, bedbugs
You didn't have to deal with them.
Yeah.
They didn't exist
for years, for like 10 years, and all of a sudden it seemed like out of the blue, I was getting calls for bedbugs every day. And at the time, we didn't have any products that would, I mean, those of you that went through this time, y'all know this, you didn't have any, that's how heat treatments came about.
Right, we didn't have the chemistries that we had back in the 60s. I mean, bedbugs were essentially eradicated by the late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
So you have whole generations of technicians that grew up without doing bedbug work, and we didn't have the products. So when bedbugs happen, they happen, and I'm out there working with people. And one of the biggest gigs that I got when I first started doing consulting work was the largest apartment company in the United States called me to help them with bedbugs.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God, that was awesome, right?
Yeah.
So I'm working with pest control folks at our apartments that I'm consulting for, and realizing these guys don't know what they're doing. So, you know, and I'm not saying that to be derogative, but it's factual. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to write a book that helps them. So I did that.
That's that helping people comes back. So
Yeah. So anyways, so the book, you know what, I can tell you this, you don't get rich from writing a book. I figured out you make about $3 to $4 an hour because it takes a long time and you don't make a lot of money, and the people who print the book and stuff, the publishers make a lot of money.
Got it.
So anyways, so there's that. So I wrote the bedbug book, and it was successful. And it's got good reviews. You can see what people say.
Yeah, no,
right? So I'm sitting there one day on my desk, and there's my bedbug combat manual, and next to it is Dr. Frischman's original cockroach combat manual.
Got it.
And I'm like, okay, I'm the student, and I felt uncomfortable that my book appeared nicer than the one he wrote, because I have real color pictures in mine. He had drawings and right. I'm like, okay, so I call him up, and I said, Doc, I'm uncomfortable with this with the bedbug combat manual. He says, why? I said, because of your book. I said, I don't like that my book looks nicer than yours, because I have real color pictures. I want to redo the cockroach combat manual. He says, I don't want to do it. It takes a long time to write a book. I said, Doc, I'll help. I said, well, you write certain parts, I'll write the rest. I actually wrote this book twice. And what I mean by that is because Dr. Frischman doesn't work on a computer and stuff, so he would write stuff, his wife would type it, print it, and mail it to me. And then I had to enter everything he wrote into my computer so I could send it to the publisher so that they could print it. So I had to write both parts of the book. So I wrote the book twice was how I look at it. But anyways, that's why we wrote the Cockroach Combat Manual.
Well,
so
thank you for writing it. Thank you for writing it, because I know it's helped a lot of people. I've been in the industry a long time, and I can't tell you how many people have referred to all those books for technical reasons, especially back in the day when the bed bugs were really doing it.
Well, I want to tell you, because as long as we're talking about the book, my favorite chapter in that book is the war stories from the field.
Yeah.
And I want to share this with you because, you know, when we were freshman students, you know, here we are, you know, we're you know, college age, 18 to 20 years old kids. And I remember Dr. Frischman telling us when cockroaches were really bad, they'll chew the eyebrows off the kids. And I thought he was BSing us and trying to impress us, right? And, you know, a couple months later, I'm working as a technician. I'm going to Section 8 public housing, and there's this mom, and she's got two little boys. They're like 2 and 3 years old, and they're following me around the house, and it was heavily infested with roaches. And both those kids had no eyelashes and no eyebrows, gosh. And they looked like you know. Have you ever seen the movie Deliverance?
I've never.
Okay, but now you have to do it. It's your homework.
Okay.
Right? So that kid sitting on the bridge playing the guitar, both of them looked like that kid from Deliverance because they had no eyebrows and eyelashes. Oh, and I'm like, oh my God! And that place was loaded with roaches. So anyway, so that's what he wrote, some war stories, and I wrote some there, and the one about the eyelashes and the eyebrows is in there. So
Well, guys, check this book out if you get a chance. Really,
And you know what? You can order it online or order it from my website. If you order it from my website, I can sign it.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, Paul, for those that don't know, we'll get into this in a second, but you're probably one of the top expert witnesses in the industry. You do you see the worst of the worst, right? You really get an opportunity more than anybody else. So, what are the most common mistakes you see pest control operators making in the field today? If you just had to pick one, because you see the bad stuff, man. So what's the one thing you see that they're making out there in the field if you had to just pick one?
Okay, so a couple things about this. One is I've been in over 300 cases, and I have a lot of cases on my desk right now, and they just keep coming. I can't believe it. So the thing about this is in my view, all these cases are avoidable. And the reason for that I can say this is because nobody in these cases is even hand grenade close to doing the work right.
Wow.
You know, and I know people don't believe this, and it's hard to believe. And even as I hear myself saying it, it's hard to believe for me. I pretty much remember all the houses I inspect.
Wow.
I might not remember the names, but I remember the houses because I have so much time there. You know, and I'm talking about all the way back to drilling and stuff and trading, because you're there so much. Right? So one of the houses I was in, one of the very first cases I was in, 55 gallons were applied. And
was this a hut?
No, it was a really, really nice house. And it had a basement, it had a crawl space, it had concrete block, and it had slab construction, all in the same house. And the math for that house was about 485 gallons.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly, but off the top of my head, I was
but
thinking.
they 55 gallons. That's why they had termites, right?
Yeah.
You can't not treat and think it's going to work.
Yeah.
You can't skimp on the old family recipe, the label. But I promise you, if you follow the label and you do a label compliant treatment and a regulatory compliant treatment, you won't be in these cases. It's as simple as that. And people who think that, I'm doing something against the industry by doing this, I'm not. I'm teaching people, do the work right. You won't be in these cases. There's nothing to fear.
So basically what I'm hearing you say is just the number one mistake people are making is just not following the label and doing the job the way that either they weren't trained to do it properly or they were trained to being lazy, but whatever the case, they're just not doing the work the way that they're supposed to do it.
Okay, so here's the thing. One is they're not applying enough termiticide. Mm-hmm. Two is they're doing crappy inspections. You have these, with today's technology, you have GPS that tells us how long the guy's been there.
That's right.
And you can't inspect a 3,500 square foot house in 7 minutes.
Yeah.
You can barely walk around the outside.
Yeah.
Or they do outside only inspections.
Yeah.
Right? When I go to the houses, you guys have to understand the houses that I'm going to. Stevie Wonder can see the termites at these houses. It's some of them have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage. For most of the termites, the termite mud tubes are coming through the ceiling or the walls of the second floor of the house.
Obvious.
It's nuts. They're all the way up to the ridge.
Earlier, my guy, and I have to tell this story real quick, but you inspired me. I don't know if you remember, but the very first time I met you, I went to one of your PJB workshop classes, and you were doing your thing, and I got so much value. But at the time, we do a lot of termite work here at Lajani's, and we deal with Formosans, and you challenged me, and I don't know if you remember this, but you said, Jared, the amount of termite work you're doing, and we were doing some, I don't know, at the time, let me be honest, I don't think we were doing any auditing of our jobs, right? And you really pressured me and pushed me to man, you have to be auditing those jobs. And today, you met him earlier, we have a full-time employee, that's all he does all day, every day.
Quality control.
It's quality control, and every single termite job we do now gets audited, man.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to have to see you in court, so I was like, dude, I got to do something. I got to do something around here.
Okay, so here's the thing, though. And think about this, you guys. You cannot do quality control for work done in the field from behind the desk.
No, you have to get out in the field.
You have to get out there. And I was really lucky. I worked for.
And I tell you what, I'd like to think we're one of the best. I'm a little biased in that thinking, but I'm so glad to have that position, because even with doing that. Yeah, even with doing that, my auditor will still, knowing the guys know they're getting audited, and from time to time, he'll still find things we got to go back and make it right? But I know right away, I'm not finding out 5 years, 6 years down the road.
You need, okay, so I worked, there was a company in Lynbrook, New York, and I was fortunate to be technical director there. It was Arrow Exterminating, and it was owned by Mr. and Mrs. Stegman. He started that company when he got out of World War II.
Yeah. This is the big arrow, we call it.
No,
right?
Arrow in Long Island.
In
This
Long
is
Island. It's a
not,
totally
not the
different
one out of
arrow,
Atlanta. Okay.
Just to clarify, we have a local arrow here in Baton Rouge. This is not that company. Totally
no,
different arrow.
and it's not the Arrow out of Atlanta either.
Okay.
Okay, so we charged double to triple the other companies in our area for termite work.
Okay.
And, you know, in fact, guys from other companies said, well, if you think we're expensive, when they were trying to do sales to customers, said, if you think we're expensive, call Arrow. Now, we had a sales team, you know, we had 8 or 10 ladies in the office. Our phone rang 1,500 times a day at least. And those guys would sell probably about a third or a little bit more, a third of the leads.
Wow.
But our pricing was right? But we only did high quality work. We sent 2 guys on every job. Every job, a supervisor or a manager came and checked while it was being done.
Wow.
During the job. We didn't check it afterwards. We checked it while it was being done.
What a commitment. You know,
And that costs 0 extra money for them, and I'll tell you how and why.
well, I was about to say that's a huge commitment to finances and time and effort and training, and I love that they've done it. But yeah, please explain to me how
Okay,
it costs
so
$0.
Okay, because all the managers and supervisors were on salary.
Okay.
So that means more work for us that day.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go out and check 4 or 5 jobs while they're being done. During
Yeah,
this,
and then cost them
during
this,
the
they're on salary.
I'm on
So
salary.
it's a huge time commitment.
Right, but I have to go out there. Now, the funny thing was,
Did y'all sell more jobs, and did the public receive that well? Y'all sold more because of that program?
we sold our jobs at our price because of that.
Right, you were able to, just
Think-
like earlier,
think
you were
about
able to
what we
command
did.
a higher price because people knew
Think
that
about what we
the
could
job
say.
was getting done and getting done right, and we have a manager, we have a leader out here. You can't be sure that X, Y, Z job's gonna be done right. They can't honestly look at you and tell you that, but if you go with us, I can guarantee you the job will be done right, and you wasn't just BSing, the job was getting done right.
Yeah, so think about the value there, right? Okay, so you could say this to a homeowner. Wait a minute. Somebody's gonna come to your house and drill holes in the slab and pull your carpet and
Yeah.
pump chemical in, and no one's gonna come to see if it's being done right?
Right,
Are you kidding?
right.
At every job that we
and,
did,
And unfortunately, most companies around the country, that is gonna be the case. They're gonna have a technician that goes out there, they're gonna do all that, and nobody's come and check.
what I just told you was worth a lot of money. It is, because
Wow.
think about it, because
Yeah.
no one else is doing this.
Right.
No one.
Yeah, no,
Right?
we do it now because,
Guess how-
you didn't give me a choice, but
Right, but guess how many retreats you have if you do the work right?
0.
This many,
Yeah,
you know?
good stuff, man.
Yeah,
This
I
is
mean, I
good.
had my company for 10 years and I, you know, me and 2 other guys did all the termites ourselves, right? And we
Right.
worked together. I
stuff.
can tell you, I had 1 that I had to go back to, and that was with chloridane.
Man, that's good.
And just do the work right. I promise you, these products work. You have to get the bug juice where the bugs are.
I love that saying. You got to
Okay.
get the bug juice where the bugs are. So you've worked now as a long time as an expert witness in high-profile pest control cases. How did that opportunity come about, and what makes a great expert witness in our space today?
Okay, so one day the phone rang, and it was Tom Campbell, and you guys heard of him. They call him Termite Tom and all that kind of stuff. And he says, "Listen, you were referred to me. I have this situation in Arkansas, and the expert he was using was a man named Mr. Byron Lamont, who I knew, who was a good guy. He was a Florida DAX field inspector. He retired and became a consultant and started doing expert witnessing work.
Okay.
He dies of a massive heart attack in the middle of this case.
Mm.
This is the house with the 55 gallons.
Oh, wow, same
Okay.
case.
Yes. So come 360 on that. So he's asking me, can I come and do this case? And I said, I swear, I said it just like this. Let me think about it. No. He said, wait, you were hot, but he said, just let me tell you the story. I said, why are you saying no? I said, because Dr. Frischman told me if I start doing this, there'll be industry backlash.
And to be fair, you have got some industry backlash.
Oh, I got a lot of industry backlash, but yet I'm still successful, right? Okay, I mean, think about it. You haven't seen me as a speaker on certain conferences. Why? Because
Got it.
certain people in certain positions think I'm the Antichrist or
Got
the
it.
enemy of the industry. I'm not. I'm a champion of doing this work right and staying out of trouble and making good money.
Love it.
So anyway, so Tom says, let me tell you the story. So he explains to me the story, and I said, okay, I'll help you this one time.
Okay.
And that was over 300 times ago now. Because everybody who has a story, it's a compelling story. You know, you have these people who, I go to their houses and I find all this damage and they're crying at their kitchen table.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, their house is destroyed.
Yeah, their house is destroyed, their lives are destroyed. What people don't understand is they've been fighting with this termite situation and the company that's telling them they're gonna do right by them and they don't. And it's been 10 or 12 years before I even got there.
Wow.
You know, it's amazing. And just because I inspect the house, there's houses that I inspected 10 or 12 years ago that their case hasn't even come up yet.
Wow.
So I feel sorry for these people, because if I go to a house, you know, I'm opening up the walls and we put blue plastic back and the painter's tape and stuff, and they have to sit there with pictures of their Christmas tree with the big hole in the freaking wall of plastic for how many years before this happens?
Right.
And I want to make another point real quick.
Sure, please do, Paul.
Lawyers call me almost every day.
Okay.
And I say, tell me your story. And I said, and I said, because you have to tell me your story, because if the facts and the science are not on your side, I cannot help you.
Got it.
And I said, because for me to help you, if the facts and the science aren't on your side, which means I either have to stretch the truth or tell a falsehood, and I'm not going to lie for anybody.
Right.
So if you see me in a case and somebody's on the other side of the case, they're on the wrong side of the case. It's as simple as that.
Right.
And all these cases are avoidable. Just do the work right.
Right. I love that story. Thank you for sharing. I know that's being really vulnerable. I really appreciate you sharing.
No,
that.
well, I mean, think about it. Think about it. You know, I'm out here trying to teach people how to make money and how to do the work right, so they're not in trouble. You look at my posts on Pest Cemetery, and people give me a rash of crap sometimes. You know, I'm trying to share information that helps them, because I'm telling them one little thing about this house that I went to, and they're like making assumptions and saying this, that, and everything else. You haven't even been to the house. You don't even know what you're talking about.
Right. I love it. What you're helping people in a real need that other people aren't willing to help, and you only are taking cases where there was gross neglect in the situation, and you really are helping out that homeowner situation.
These cases are not like, you know, like close.
Right.
They're not. They're catastrophic, visually obvious type cases. And in fact, I go to some houses and I'll call them up and say, this isn't a case. There's hardly any damage. The treatment holes are every 12 inches where they're supposed to be. This isn't a case. You can't do this. And they don't believe me sometimes. I say, well, I'm sorry. I'm going to send you my bill for inspecting, but it's not going to be a case because I'm not going to testify in it.
I think you kind of covered this, but I mean, let me ask, what's one surprising thing most people, even industry pros, don't realize about litigation in the pest control world, Paul?
It is not like on television. It is not like on television. It's way uglier.
One thing I know is that they get you in time in court, almost everybody loses. I've learned. I know that's true.
I haven't seen us ever lose a case. I haven't been in a case where we're on the losing side ever. But that's not because of me. That's because of the facts and the science.
Got it.
Right?
It's because somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do at the end of the
Every
day.
time.
Got it. As a consultant, what's the number one piece of advice you would give to a struggling pest control business, Paul? I love this question because I know that you're going to have something good here for the people out there that are struggling. Because I've seen you help so many people. Somebody's stuck. Maybe they're doing 100,000. They want to do a $500,000 or whatever the numbers are, and they're stuck and they're struggling. What's one piece of advice you give that person trying to break through?
It's I can't call it one piece of advice. I could say it's one piece of advice or a package because it's a lot of different parts.
It's a lot.
Okay? One is, people talk about KPIs, key performance indicators. There's one key performance indicator that's important: profitability. If I'm hitting my profit number, I don't care about the other numbers.
Yeah.
I really, really don't, because I'm hitting my targets, right?
Right.
That's how I ran my business. I knew what my dollars had to be to hit my profit, right?
Right.
So think about this: if you're not hitting your profit and you do more work, you literally lose more money the more work you do.
Right.
If you're doing it like I did with my simple formula to manage my costs and hit my profit numbers, the more work I do, the more money I make.
Got
right?
it.
So profitability is really, really important, and you get profitable by having the right prices and controlling your costs and knowing what your costs are.
Know your numbers.
You have to know your numbers. You
Even
have
though
to
they're boring, you got to know them.
and you know what? People think just call me. I'll help you with your numbers. It's not hard. So let's see, what else? The other thing that's important is do good work. Do not settle for something.
So let me ask you a question on that, because I'm with you 100%. You got to do good work. You got to do what you say. Your reputation is everything. But one thing that I know I experienced, we do really good work here, but it really does change when you go from doing the work yourself or being a 2 or 3 man person to having 20 people out there doing the work. How do you continue, and of course the audits, but how do you continue to make sure good work is done when you have a whole, let's say you have 20 people out there, or you had 18 people? How did you continue to make sure the work was done good, something other than just doing an audit? Because even with the audits, you want everything still to be doing right. So what's a good piece of advice that kind of makes that?
Okay, so Zig Ziglar taught us, and I was lucky in my career, I got to be
I'm a
the Zig
huge
Ziglar
Zig
fan.
Ziglar fan.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have to inspect what you expect. Right?
Inspect what you expect.
Okay, so anybody who follows me on Facebook or whatever sees George going to get the paper and not chase the deer, right? Because I trained him to do that, and I reward the behavior I expect. Right? I'm also not behind the desk when I had my company. I was out in the field working with my guys.
Right.
I was at every job site.
So
and we had all these guys working at different places. I drove around.
So the best way to do this is training, right?
Okay,
training.
you gotta train, right? People have to know what they're doing. And training formula, you know what?
Training and accountability.
Yeah, I was a level 4 coach in USA hockey. And I know that doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but I had a really great first year coach that taught us. He said, and the formula is this: you explain what you're going to teach, you demonstrate what you're teaching, you let them do it, and then you apply corrections so that what they're doing and to build their skill. Right? So now you train these guys. Now here's the thing where everybody falls down. You send these guys out to do work, and you never check on what they're doing. That was the challenge that I laid before you.
Yes, sir.
And now you're doing it, right?
Now we're doing it,
and your
that's right.
company will be way better because of it. Oh, guess what? Your company's now providing a more valuable service too. Right?
I think so.
Because nobody else is doing what you're doing.
Not that I know of, no.
I know. And you know who? Do the customers know it? They don't know it unless you tell them. Right?
I need to tell more people.
You need to tell them when you're selling them. This is why we're this price.
Right.
This is why we're the equivalent of a BMW or a Mercedes price. Because
Right.
we're not selling a Ford Fiesta.
Right.
You want to buy a Ford Fiesta? Here,
Well,
look in the yellow pages. All those other guys are doing Ford
For me,
Fiestas.
it's always just doing the right thing is always the right thing, even if it's the hard thing. Like, I really do take it serious, and I think I always did, and I still do. Like, these are people's largest investments. These are their homes. Like, this is no joke, you know? And I know that if we really don't do right, we're really not taking the right steps. I know people aren't thinking about it because it's, you know, they haven't got to see what we see, where people's homes have been destroyed and they're falling through their floors. And, you know, I've seen 5-year-old homes that have been just unlivable. So I have that perspective. So for me, I take it very seriously, right? And I think all our pest control guys out here that have seen that, we take it much more serious and just, we do the right thing, right? And I think if you have that mentality, you'll go far in any business.
Well, one of the other things the other tool that I can share with you, and you guys can do this at LaJohnny's, is make a binder. Take pictures of LaJohnny's guys doing this work every step of the way. Because that's what we did, right? Because you can go.
Well, we could use an iPad now, Paul. You know, we have digital stuff.
Hear me out, okay? Whether you do it electronically or print, I don't care.
All right,
okay?
cool.
But think about this: what our competitors are doing. I can go to my distributor supplier and I can get a termiticide application, like guidebook kind of thing, brochure, right? For whatever termiticide I'm using.
Right.
And everybody out there has it.
That's right.
And if you look at it, what does that do? That tells the customers that everybody's the same, because you have the Termidor brochure, and they have the Termidor brochure, and they have the, you know, whichever Taurus one or whatever, and they all look the same. They show guys drilling, trenching, and they don't show LaJohnny's guys.
No, they don't.
Right?
I wonder if I could pay them to put my guys in those brochures.
No, you make your own.
I'll make my
That's
own.
what we
Okay,
did.
all right.
That's what we did. Okay, we're gonna drill holes in your concrete patio outside. Well, are you gonna patch them nice? Remember, the idea was
Are you gonna color match it? Are you gonna
we
clean
color
up after
matched it. We did,
yourself? All
and
that
we.
stuff, yeah.
The idea was we're gonna come in here. The guys are gonna come into work in the morning. We're gonna be there all day. We're gonna clean up. We're gonna make it look like we weren't even here when we're done.
Right.
But we're going to apply the product according to the label,
That's right.
and that's why it takes so much time, right? And this is why we're worth more money, because I just showed you a picture of from A to Z of us doing the work, right? But remember, when I'm talking about the 80s. We didn't have computers and stuff. We didn't have laptops. You didn't have iPads.
Yeah.
You
Y'all didn't
guys,
have termite bait stations either.
you guys are spoiled by this, okay? But use it. Put together a presentation on your iPad. Said, oh yeah, wait. I saw the LaJohnny's guys trenching. I saw them treat. I saw them backfill the trench. I saw them drill the holes. I saw them clean up the dust.
Yeah.
I saw them patch the holes so that it matched.
So we've been actually working on that for a while, and
Oh,
myself,
you should have done it when I told you about it 5 years ago.
I know.
5 years ago.
We're working on it now. We have an
Maybe
iPad
4. Maybe
presentation
4.
very similar to that we hope to launch
Okay.
very soon. So we're doing that now.
All right, good.
You know, I'm a little stubborn sometimes.
That's okay, man.
So, you know, I attend your workshops, Paul. I've loved it, by the way. Anybody out there that hasn't ever been to one of the PJB workshops, I highly recommend it. But tell us a little bit about your PJB workshops. What makes your peer groups different from others out there? I can answer that. actually, I could take that one, but just from your perspective, what do you think makes it a little different than all the other peer groups out there? They seem to be popping up more and more these days. That wasn't always a thing. We seem to be having more out here in the industry. What makes yours different than others?
Okay, so I can tell you this. The reason I started even doing these was, and I was very hesitant to do it,
Really?
was actually Brian and Shonda Meitler from Kansas.
Okay.
So they owned Worldwide.
Okay,
Right?
yeah.
Okay, and they had another company too, and I apologize for forgetting the name, but I don't want to get it right. It's like Eco, whatever. But anyways, they asked me to start doing them because they were going to Lloyd's Miguel care retreats. And I was friends with Lloyd's Miguel. I didn't want to compete with them. I actually did it.
You wrote a great book too,
Yeah.
by the way, from technician to CEO. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Nobody's seen that.
So, anyways, I did a tour with him and Dr. Frischman.
Okay, wow.
Early in my
Man, y'all were the
consulting-
original OGs,
Yeah.
man. back
Yeah.
in the
So,
day.
anyways, so I didn't want to compete with him, but then he died of an illness, and I was really sad. And then Shonda called me and said, "Would I consider doing these things?" And I did. And you know what? This fall is going to be, I think, our 18th or 19th workshop. And the workshops are. I can tell you they're not for everybody because I can only do about 45 people at a time.
Right.
And the reason for that is I set up the rooms usually in a big U shape, which facilitates conversation, and I gotta run back and forth and answer all the questions. I facilitate the thought process. You know that the topics come from you guys because I can sit at home in my office and say, "Oh, okay, everybody wants to learn about this," but I'm making assumptions. No, the topics come from the people who register. And you guys send them in. But actually, what's your perspective? You've come to many.
Yeah, no, I don't think I've missed many since I've gone. I think the last 5 or 6 years I've been to almost every one. I might have missed 1 or 2 of them. But for me, it's the people. What you've done is you set up a peer group of some of the best people around the country, some smart people from, we got people in there doing $500,000 all the way up to 10 million in that group, right? So I get a
actually more than that now.
More than that now,
Yeah, we have we have small, medium, and large, and extra large.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So you get a diverse perspective, and nobody's in there with an ego or an attitude or everybody shares freely. And I've made so many friends from your group that you fostered, so I thank you for that. You just set up a very unique, and then people feel comfortable in your groups. It doesn't feel awkward or weird, and you just facilitate a comfortable environment for people to be able to share freely, and really to make some really good friends, man. And I think even a lot of people out there doing it today, they've some people are not gonna, but they've kind of gone and done their own groups. They came to your group first, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people that are doing it today out there. They kind of originated, came to your group, and kind of broke off. So once again, you were a pioneer and kind of just setting up these type of groups and peers, and it is unique. So anybody, I know you only can do 45, but anybody that's been thinking about it, if you're stuck, you want to break through, I highly recommend it. Getting around other people that are doing big things is how you learn how to do bigger things.
Yeah. Well, okay. So listen. Here's the thing. One of the things that you can sit back and you look, you go from 50,000 feet, right?
Right.
And here we are looking at the workshop. One of the things about the workshop is everybody's like-minded. Everybody's seeking high quality and wants to do, responsible, honest work,
right?
And make a living doing it, and being responsive and responsible to their customers.
That's right.
And everybody that comes to my workshops to do that, they're all like-minded. And not everybody can come to every workshop. I try to make them affordable. We do them at fun places.
Yeah,
right.
We did a cruise on one. That was amazing.
We were just on Utopia
of the
the
was
Seas,
fun.
and if you missed it, we had 68 people come to the Utopia of the Seas cruise. But not everybody. But we had people bring their families. So the workshop attendance, you can see it on the website. But we had Dr. Frischman come in.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Which was great. He's still thanking me for having him come on the cruise.
Really?
And I'm like, no, it's okay. And here's the funny thing. He would say, he came up to me, he said, "Paul, my room has a balcony."
Yeah.
I go, "I know, Doc. I paid for a balcony for you." And then he's, Paul, I forget all the extra stuff that we got.
Yeah.
And I had him do beach hats and stuff for him and stuff in his room, and he was telling me about it. And like he got it by accident.
He was like a kid. He was like a kid, like it.
No, it was really, really fun to have him. And for those of you who don't know, how do I get Dr. Frischman to come to these things and stuff like that? I'm the founder of the Frischman Endowment Scholarship at Purdue University, so I have that on him. So,
that's awesome.
and I'm proud of that too, because since 1995, 25, we've been giving scholarships to anywhere from 1 to 2 students a year. And that's 30 years now. And this past January, when I was at Purdue as a speaker, was the first time I got to go to the awards ceremony. Yeah. I was the only sponsor of a scholarship that was there. Yeah. Oh my God! You should have seen all these entomology kids coming and talking to me about careers and stuff like that. Yeah. And then the head of the department was saying they want me to come back and to work with the students, and I'm happy to do that. Man, that's so awesome. Giving back, life's a circle, and like I told you before, the more I give away, the more comes back to me. It's crazy. That's how successful I've been with just being me. I spend zero money on advertising, zero. I put stuff out on Facebook and it seems to work.
Well, I appreciate you. I know a lot of other people do well. So keep doing what you're doing, man.
So anyway, I'll plug the workshop a little bit because the next workshop is at Pensacola Beach. We're right there on the beach. Okay. We're probably going to be doing karaoke singing. You hear that? You hear that out there? Our karaoke. We have a couple.
I will not be doing any karaoke.
No, we will be doing karaoke listening. Right?
That's right.
And drinking. But but Jason Yost is an excellent singer, and Kristen Buckingham. Yeah, oh my God, she sang on the cruise.
Yeah, I heard her.
She is awesome. So that's worth it. That's worth it just to come to the workshop, just to listen to her sing.
I'm thinking about another thing that I'm going to tell you. I think is unique about you, at least in my perspective. I think a lot of others is you're really great at the tough love thing. Like you really you really are. Like you really do hold people accountable. Like you teach in love, but you really are good in your unique way of holding people accountable. In a tough way, but in a fair way. And I know I appreciate it. And I've seen you do it with multiple people before. So as you come into the group, it kind of becomes like a family, and you really do have a unique way of holding accountability.
Well, think about this. You can come to a workshop or go to a conference and learn stuff. But to make a difference in your business, you have to go back and
you have to apply. You have to
do this stuff, right? So remember, one of the things I do is, I'm easily influenced by cool stuff. So like you go to Universal and they have those T-shirts, thing 1 and thing 2 from Dr. Seuss. So I did this 1 thing, 2 things, 3 things page where you say, okay, you can write 1, 2, or 3 things that you're going to change on your business, and you sign a testimonial to yourself or an assertion to yourself that I'm going to fix these things, and then you come back to the next workshop 6 months from now and you say, Jared, did you get that quality control stuff done? And say you did it.
I did it. I do some of it. I'm working on some.
But doesn't that make you feel good to be able to stand up in front of everybody and in front of us and the Lord and say out loud, I decided what my thing was going to be, do quality control, and I did it.
That's right.
Right? Because that inspires the next person to do what they said they were going to do.
While we're plugging stuff, you just got to show me today, and I know you're super excited about it, and I'm excited for you. You're working on a new platform where you're going to have some videos and some learning. It's going to be a subscription model where people will have access to all kind of resources and educational platforms and training and just a whole host of stuff. You want to tell us just touch on that a little bit? And I know you're excited about it. I'm excited about it, and just kind of touch on that just a little bit.
Okay, so you're talking about, I have a new website that's coming out. It's going to be called PJB Pest Management Pro. And it's a training website by subscription. I want to be affordable for everybody, and I also want to provide content for everybody. And I want to make sure I look at people's.
What's the website, real quick?
It's PJB Pest Management Pro, but it's not open yet. You can't. Find
it's not open yet.
Yeah, you can't find it, but I'm not going to keep it a secret.
Got it.
So, anyways, but the thing is, I want to provide accurate and credible information for everybody that you can use in your business today. And I do that at the workshops. I do that here today,
sure.
and almost everywhere I go. And the idea is to make it affordable so it's helpful to people, and also to be responsive to the requests. Like you're going to say, "Hey, Paul, I want to build a quality control program. What should I do?" Hey, you know what? That's a topic. And I think I don't even know how many topics. I showed you how many topics. I already lost count of how many topics are already on there. So when this thing launches, it's going to be picking up speed and going, and we'll do live Zoom meetings that people will be invited to, and you can just get on there.
It's exciting.
Think about it. You're probably going to be one of the people. We're going to have questions and answers and stuff.
I'd be honored.
It's going to be awesome, right?
Awesome.
So and then those things will get recorded so that because not everybody can be everywhere at the same time.
That's right.
And boom, now it's in the library, and just go click on it and stuff. And you know what? I can promise you this: if you're at a training class that I'm doing, it's not boring.
I can vouch for that. It's not boring. He keeps it exciting.
And it's not. I've been on your side of the table sitting there listening to these guys teaching, and you're like, wow, has this guy really ever done a termite job? Has this guy really ever trapped some rats and stuff? And you know, I've done all this work from A to Z, and I want to keep it exciting and entertaining, because that's the other thing. If you can't hold people's attention, the training is of zero value.
That's right.
If you don't have quizzes and stuff where you can verify that the guy learned the information,
That's right.
it's of zero value.
Accountability, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not just here to blow smoke up people's butts or sunshine or whatever, but we're trying to provide stuff that's worthwhile. Your time is of value to you, and I respect that.
And on that note, I've taken a lot of your time this evening. I don't want to take too much more, but I do have just a few more questions.
It's okay. We'll be here as long as it takes.
Well, I want to do rapid fire rounds. So I have
Okay.
about 4 or 5 questions, but we're going to do it kind of rapid fire real quick. We don't
Okay.
want, I kind of want to wrap it up with you. Your favorite insect to study and why?
Probably German cockroach and
cockroach.
termites. Yeah, because
Just get one, man. You just get
I know,
one.
but they're both cool.
Okay, cockroaches. A book every pest control operator should read, and not the Cockroach Combat Manual. Another one, not one that you wrote, one that you did not write. One book a pest control guy should go read.
Well, I'm an author in the Malice book too, but I think if you get a Malice book, I think you're in good shape. Even a Truman's Guide is pretty good.
Truman's Guy's pretty good. Okay, great, thank you. Best business advice you ever received from anyone?
Oh, no question, no question. If you buy big equipment, you can always do small work. If you buy small work, it's hard to do big jobs.
That's good. That's good. What do you think is the next big opportunity coming in pest control? What's coming down the pipe for us? What's the next big opportunity for pest controllers out here?
There's a few things that come to mind.
Okay.
Okay. One is that the work is out there if you go ask for it. You have to get out there and ask for it. You know, all these, I call them scams, and I don't want to seem like an old crotchety guy, but the scammers that, hey, you know what, we're going to get you all these leads and stuff like that. You look at the number of leads they're promising, there's more people than live in your town. You
Yeah.
can't do that. The work's out there if you go and ask for it, but you shouldn't be out there asking for it if you don't do great work. The other thing that's going to happen for us is technology.
Yeah, I think
Technology is getting better, but while I say that, be careful of AI, because I see people putting AI stuff on their websites, and then you read it, and I can tell it's written by AI, and it's incorrect. So you can't just trust AI.
Got
You
it.
know, and you know, you have great website guys, and they're doing the SEO and all that crap, but if they're writing your articles for you, they're not entomologists, and they're not pest control pros. You need to check that stuff, make sure it's accurate.
Good advice, Paul.
Okay.
That's
What else?
good. If you had to start over in the pest control industry today, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? I probably would get investors, because I always had to rent. But it's expensive up there where I started my business and stuff.
What do you mean you get investors? Like you're talking about the
So
actual
I would-
property?
So yeah, so like I could like see one of the things I said here when I came to this, he's got a great place here. He's got plenty of square footage. He's got a great building where he can park all his vehicles and stuff like that. I had to rent,
Got it.
right? I didn't own so I would get people that were investors that could lend me money, so I would have the capital to purchase,
Got
right? But it's Long Island, New York is very expensive.
Yeah, very expensive.
And it's
Got it.
expensive today. It was expensive back then.
Got it.
So that's one thing I would think about.
All right. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time.
That's all you
today.
got?
That's
I
all
like
I got.
I
man.
like the rapid
That's all I
fires.
got. You like that? That's it, man. That's what we got.
No,
This
thank
has been Main Street Mogul, Paul Bello. Anything you want to leave everybody in closing, Paul, before we wrap it up today?
Well, there was a couple things. Like, one is, I think I said it earlier, one of the best pieces of advice I got as a new chemical representative working for Zeneca,
Yeah.
I sat at this place, it was in Florida, and I'm sitting at this table of 10, and the president of the company is going to talk to everybody. It's my first time going to one of these meetings. So I was a pest control guy, and here I am working for a chemical company now, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And there was an older guy sitting next to me at this table, and they were from Northern Row Crop, which was, Zeneca Professional Products, the pest control group. We had like 20 guys. Northern Row Crop had like 400 guys or something like that, right? And he looked at me and he said, "Son, no matter what, always remember this: you got to get the bug juice to where the bugs are." And I'm like, okay, that stuck with me all the way back since 1994.
Right.
And the other thing that I tell everybody, look, the good news is as long as there's bugs, we'll always have a job. And think about it, it's true.
I love it.
You're right.
I think we're gonna end it right there. We'll leave you guys with all these pearls of wisdom. Have a blessed day. We love you guys. Main Street Mogul, Paul Bello, pest control legend.
Thanks. This was
Been
fun.
great, Paul.
This was fun.
Thank you so
No
much.
worries.